Hello guys, in this video I wanted to do something different, and what I wanted to do is make an analogy video about myself with a fictional characters or creatures. Now I did mention several times in my previous video that I'm planning to do something like this, where I'm gonna use fictional stories and movies and other stuff from the media as an example to reflect on. And reflect on what's happening in our real life scenario, in our real life world. Because, as the statement says, art is a reflection of our reality. And literally, guys, I feel like it's true. That's why a lot of fictional stories they awkwardly seem to predict the future, because a lot of people who writes fictional stories, especially the big and famous one, they reflect on historical events and they reflect on things that are happening in our society in the present time, and they kind of could tell like where is it going, and so they make fictional stories that's based on real stuff. And I hope I'm making sense to you guys, because a lot of fictional stories they seemingly foreshadow the future in our reality. Now, just to get to the point, because I feel like I'm, straying away from the point. The analogy I want to make in this video is myself. Now, in this picture, what you see here are two creatures. One of them is a xenothrope, and the other one is a neurothrope. Now, these two creatures are Tyranids from the Warhammer franchise. Now, the Warhammer franchise, there's two of them. There's a medieval one and there's the science fiction one, which is called Warhammer 40k. Now, I'm a big fan of the Warhammer 40k series, the one with Space Marine, the God Emperor, Chaos, all that stuff. And one of the creatures that got my attention are the psychic creatures from the Tyranids. So far, there's three specialized psychic creatures. So two of them are the ones that I'm showing in front of you. Now, the analogy I want to make is basically myself. In the very beginning, when I was a teenager, and when I started getting into politics, especially around middle school, I felt like a xenothrope. Barely starting, barely awakening my brain. And I truly did believe in equality. I truly believe helping out in our fellow man. And don't get me wrong, I still believe that. I still believe like we should help out our fellow human beings and treat them with respect. The problem is human nature. And what I mean by that, I mean while us human beings we're capable of doing good things, we're also capable of doing bad things. So bad stuff will always happen because it's in our nature. Like, let's not beat around the bush, guys. This is simple observation that you could see with yourself, with your own eyes, that us human beings, we're going to sin and we're going to do some bad stuff here and there. But at the same time, we're capable of doing good stuff here and there. So I'm comparing myself to the xenothrope because I'm barely awakening my brain. I'm barely starting. Now, for those of you guys know anything about the xenothropes, in the Warhammer 40k franchise, and I'll leave a link down in the description about the xenothropes. In the Warhammer 40k franchise, the xenothropes, since they're barely new and they're barely, starting to activate the brain, they're required to push themselves to a limit. And sadly, sometimes when the xenothrope fights in the battlefield, they literally fry themselves out of exhaustion to the point where they actually kill themselves for pushing themselves too hard. And this is something I could relate because, on a personal note, guys, I did suffer anxiety attacks. I did suffer, social anxiety issues, and I became something similar to Hikikomori. And I'll explain more about that in later videos, but I did suffer something like that. I basically fried myself, just like a xenothrope, because I pushed myself too hard. At one point in my life, guys, I did work 3 jobs, and I was going to college part-time as a part-time student. And I decided to take a break from college and then start working on my 3 part-time jobs for a while. And then eventually I reduced it to a single job, because one of the jobs of the 3 part-time jobs I had, they gave me both a raise and more hours. So I went from part-time to full-time, and I decided to start going back to school. And then this is where, after I fry myself, after I suffer a anxiety attack, you could say that this pandemic helped us to be better, to reflect in our action and reset our life. And then you could say that this is where I started to evolve into a neurothrope. Now, the neurothrope in this picture right here, guys, the neurothrope is on the left side and the xenothrope is on the right side, just to make that clear. So the neurothrope is basically an evolution form of the xenothrope. And the neurothrope, from this picture that you can see right here, is obviously bigger, more stronger, and more deadlier. And once again, I'm gonna leave a link down in the description about this creature. So the neurothrope is basically a xenothrope 2.0, and it's much more stronger and much more reliable. And more importantly, while it still technically could fry itself, it could handle stress much better than its little brother, and it could definitely do a lot more damage. And this is something I feel like that happened to me. Basically, I evolved into something better, and I had to thank for my 3 part-time jobs. And the job that I had where I was working in a pizzeria doing customer service, they promoted me to assistant manager, and I started to get more insight about how to run a business, how to run a fast food customer service place. But thankfully for this pandemic, it kind of gave me a reset button to relax and recover myself, because I did fry myself. I did suffer a anxiety attack, so I was trying to mentally recover from that. And I'm gonna explain more about my anxiety attack in the later video, guys, but yeah. So during the crisis, I just relaxed and took my time and went back to college, but I took college classes online. And slowly but surely, you could say that I'm evolving into a neurothroat. I wanted to become better, and I want to learn how to handle stress better. Now, with this analogy, guys, my goal is become even more stronger, even more stable. And that version, with this analogy, is the Maliceptor. Now, in the Warhammer 40k franchise, the latest Tyrannid psychic creature that's much more stronger than the Xenothrope, the Neurothrope, is the Maliceptor. Now, the Maliceptor is basically the ultimate psychic Tyrannid. So basically, it's a Xenothrope 3.0, And the Maliceptor is extremely powerful, extremely huge, but most importantly, and this is the number one thing that the Maliceptor stands out, it's extremely durable and reliable, and it doesn't fry itself. Why? Because it's the most stable out of all psychic creature, Tyranid creature. And this is my goal of what I want to become, guys. I want to become a human being that is very stable, that is very healthy, that's very physically strong. Because, and I'm gonna leave a link down in this description about the Maliceptor, because the Maliceptor, it has its own story. The Maliceptor is basically a giant brain bug, and the brain is so huge and so massive that it requires to have a muscular body in order to lift itself. Usually the Neurothrope and the Xenothrope, they rely on their psychic ability to levitate itself, so it doesn't need a body. It doesn't need a strong body. But in this case, the brain is so massive and so huge that it couldn't lift itself with its psychic ability. So instead, the hive mind gave the Maliceptor a very buff body. So imagine Albert Einstein, but with a body of a bodybuilder. That's what the Maliceptor basically is. And this is something that I want to, with this analogy, this is something I want to become. I want to become mentally stable. I want to become physically strong. And most importantly, I want to become both reliable, durable, and very valuable. According to the lore about the Maliceptor, the hive mind only sends the Maliceptor when it's highly needed. In other words, it's very valuable, and the Maliceptor is very expensive to summon. It's very resource intensive. But the Maliceptor, without a doubt, is the most reliable, durable, survivable, and it will definitely not, fry itself when it pushes its psychic abilities very hard to the extreme. And this is something that I'm trying to turn myself into, guys. I'm trying to turn myself into a human being that other people could rely upon, something that I could be valuable. And I'm not giving up on myself, because people that do give up on themselves, they indulge themselves with vices where, they, in order to make themselves feel good, they start doing something that gives them pleasure, but they don't feel content because they don't give themselves proper purpose or something, an acceptance where they feel good about themselves. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say, but yeah, people indulge themselves with vices, and that's something I do not want to do. So instead, I want to go to the healthier route and transform myself into a better version of myself. In other words, reaching my genetic peak if I can. And that's what I want to become. I want to become a stronger version of myself, smarter version, and most importantly, a stable, reliable, and valuable version of myself. So with this analogy, I want to become a Maliceptor and just be, reliable when people needs me. So guys, I know this is a cheesy video and a cheesy talk, but this is something that I wanted to put out and talk about. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and one more thing, guys, I'm also planning to buy this sculpture as a reminder that what I want to become. Just basically a better version of myself. So I'm planning to buy this from, Tabletop GW Workshop. And hopefully I could paint this very beautiful, because look at this model, it looks very beautiful. So yeah, this is all I just want to talk, and this is just a share thought video that I wanted to say. So see you guys. And by the way, I'm also doing Discord, so I'm also gonna leave that in the comment section below. So see you guys, and bye bye.